Emotional fragility is one of the quiet tragedies of modern character. Most individuals imagine themselves strong, yet their inner state is constantly negotiated by forces outside their control. A careless remark can disturb them for hours. A stranger's opinion can dictate their self-worth. A minor inconvenience can erode their composure. What they call strength is often nothing more than temporary comfort maintained by favorable circumstances. True resilience begins with a different realization: the world is under no obligation to protect one's emotional stability. Events will unfold according to their own indifferent logic. People will misunderstand, criticize, admire, betray, and forget in cycles as old as human society itself. To demand emotional safety from such a landscape is to construct one's peace upon unstable ground. The individual who becomes emotionally unbreakable begins by withdrawing this misplaced expectation. Instead of attempting to control the endless movement of external events, he shifts his attention toward the only domain that has ever truly belonged to him: his own interpretation of those events. The disturbance most people experience is rarely caused by reality itself, it is caused by the conclusions they attach to it. An insult becomes painful only after the mind declares it meaningful. Rejection wounds only after the mind interprets it as a verdict on personal worth. Misfortune becomes unbearable only when the mind insists that life should have unfolded differently. In this sense, emotional suffering is often the product of unexamined judgments rather than unavoidable reality. Once this becomes clear, a remarkable freedom emerges. The individual begins to see that many of the things capable of disturbing ordinary people possess no intrinsic authority over the mind. Opinions lose their tyranny. Praise becomes as unreliable as criticism. Fortune reveals itself to be temporary and therefore unsuitable as a foundation for peace. At this stage, a subtle transformation occurs. The individual ceases to organize his emotional life around approval, comfort, or external validation. Instead, he begins to cultivate something far more durable: internal discipline. His attention turns toward the quality of his own thinking, the clarity of his judgments, and the steadiness of his conduct. A person who develops this inner architecture becomes difficult to disturb. This is not because adversity has disappeared from his life, but because adversity no longer penetrates the same vulnerable places within his mind. Where others interpret events as personal affronts, he recognizes them as ordinary occurrences within a vast and indifferent world. Consider how much emotional turmoil is created by the desire to control what was never controllable: the opinions of others, the outcomes of uncertain efforts, the unpredictable rhythm of success and failure. Most individuals bind their emotional state to these unstable elements and then wonder why their peace continually fractures. The emotionally unbreakable person refuses this arrangement. He understands that external events belong to the world, not to him. What belongs to him is his response. While circumstances may limit action, they never dictate interpretation unless the mind allows them to do so. This understanding gradually produces a calm that others often mistake for detachment. In truth, it is not detachment from life but detachment from illusion. The individual no longer assumes that life must align with his preferences in order for him to remain composed. He has accepted the volatility of the world and therefore ceased to be surprised by it. There is, however, another discipline required for this stability: the ability to observe one's own thoughts without immediately believing them. The human mind is capable of generating endless narratives about injustice, failure, humiliation, and loss. Most people accept these narratives instantly, allowing them to dictate their emotional state. The disciplined mind does something different. It pauses. It examines the thought as if it were an object placed upon a table. Is this interpretation accurate? Is it useful? Does it deserve authority? In this small moment of reflection, emotional storms often lose their force. The result is not the absence of emotion but the presence of mastery. Feelings may arise, but they do not command. Circumstances may shift, but they do not destabilize the core of one's being. The individual remains steady because his sense of self is no longer constructed from fragile materials such as approval, reputation, or temporary success. Most people seek emotional security by attempting to rearrange the world around them. The wiser approach is to rearrange the structure of one's own mind. Once this inner order is established, the world may continue in all its unpredictability without threatening one's composure. Thus the emotionally unbreakable person walks through the same storms as everyone else, yet emerges fundamentally unchanged, not because the winds have weakened, but because his foundation was never built upon the wind in the first place.